Welcome back to the deep dive. Ready to get salty. Today, we're diving into this intense scene you guys sent in. We're talking about a young guy, Manjiro, desperate. I mean, really desperate to get back home. And then there's the captain, Captain Davis, who, well, let's just say he's not making it easy. Picture this. Manjiro's practically begging for a whaleboat, even saying he'd row it himself, alone.
Yeah.
Talk about guts. And Davis, he's having none of it. So get ready, because we're about to untangle this whole power struggle, and I think you'll find it's way more complicated than just a captain yelling at a sailor. What's your first instinct when you read this, expert speaker? What's the real head-scratcher here?
You hit the nail on the head with complicated. It's easy to see Manjiro and think, poor guy, and Davis as the, well, not-so-nice captain, but it's like you're seeing a photo, just one moment. What we need to uncover is the why, the motivation. Why is Manjiro so desperate? And Davis. What makes him act this way? This isn't just about getting home, it's about power, the kind you found on the open ocean back then, where the captain's word was everything.
Right? Like life or death decisions right there on the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of life or death, we've got to talk about this whole whaleboat thing. Now, I'm guessing not everyone listening spends their weekends brushing up on their nautical knowledge. So whaleboats, just imagine these tough little boats launched right from the big ship, used for hunting whales, obviously, but also away off a ship if you were really desperate. But rowing across the ocean in one of those, that's next level risky. It really shows you just how desperate Manjiro was to get back.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just a case of, man, I miss my mom's cooking. Imagine being totally uprooted. I mean, everything you know, your language, your family, your entire world gone. And then stuck on a ship for years, according to the sources we have. Years, not even knowing if you'll ever see home again. That does something to you, messes with your mind. His desperation, it's like a pressure cooker, and it's about to blow.
And on the other side of this pressure cooker, you've got Captain Davis. And he is not messing around. We're talking yelling, bringing his walking stick down hard on the deck. The sources really emphasize that sound, almost like a whip cracking. Not exactly the kind of captain you see on those whale-watching tours, right? What's your take on Davis's, shall we say, management style here?
Davis, he's a man of his time, you know. On those ships, the captain wasn't just in charge, he was the law. Responsible for the ship, but more importantly, for the lives of every single sailor on board. That's a heavy burden, and it creates a certain kind of leader. Order, discipline, that's what kept a ship afloat, literally. Now that walking stick, it's not just him being grumpy. Think of it as a tool, a symbol of power. Back then, no radios, no loudspeakers. You wanted attention, you had to command it. The walking stick, that was his way of doing just that.
Okay, yeah, slamming a stick down definitely gets your attention. And speaking of attention grabbing, there's this little detail in the sources that I just found fascinating. Apparently the price of cedar planks was going up. Who knew, right? But even in the middle of this super tense standoff, Davis is thinking about it. It's almost comical. Like, Manjiro, I hear your pleas for freedom, but have you seen the price of lumber these days? But seriously, what does this tell us about Davis's priorities here?
That's what I love about these deep dives. It's the small details that often reveal the most. And you're right, Davis, even when he's yelling, he's thinking about the bigger picture. And those cedar planks, they're not just wood, they're the ship's lifeline. They represent its ability to function, to make money, to survive. Remember, this wasn't a pleasure cruise. These voyages were business ventures. And a captain who didn't keep a close eye on the bottom line, well, he wouldn't stay captain for long.
So we've got Manjiro, desperate to escape, willing to risk it all. And we've got Captain Davis playing 4D chess with cedar plank prices. It's a maritime showdown, and we're just getting started.
It's like that classic story, right? The little guy up against the system. But here you've got the ocean thrown in, miles from land, where the rules are different, harsher.
Totally. You're stuck on this ship, isolated, and any choice you make could be huge, even deadly. The sources really paint that picture, that feeling of being trapped.
And that's what makes the whole whaleboat thing even more powerful. For Manjiro, it's not just about going home, it's about breaking free, taking control. And the fact that he'd even think about rowing it alone, that's a statement. Like he's saying, I'd rather face the open ocean than stay here another minute.
Ooh, that gives me chills. It's like the whaleboat is this symbol of hope, this tiny speck in a massive, scary ocean. And then you got Davis and that walking stick, all about order and doing things by the book.
Exactly. And don't underestimate how important that order was back then. You've got a crew, bunch of guys from all over, stuck together for months, maybe years, tiny space, storms, diseases, you name it. Captain, he had to keep a lid on things, sometimes just by being tough to prevent total chaos.
It's easy to judge from where we sit now, right? But put yourself in Davis's shoes. If it was you, responsible for a ship and all those lives, Out in the middle of nowhere, would you really act any differently? Makes you think twice about judging, yeah.
That's the thing about history. It's not about right or wrong, it's about understanding. And what I find really interesting is the sources we have, they hint at a different side to Davis. Yeah, he's strict, practical, but there might be a part of him that actually gets where Manjiro's coming from.
Wait, really? Where are you seeing that? Because the guy practically bit Manjiro's head off over asking for the boat.
It's the little things. One source mentions that Davis himself spent years away from home when he was younger. It's a small detail, but maybe, just maybe, he understands that deep longing that Manjiro's feeling.
So he's not just this robot captain. There's a whole internal conflict going on we don't see at first.
Exactly, and that's what makes him interesting. He's torn between duty, keeping the ship running, and this possible sliver of empathy for Manjiro's situation. Adds a whole other level to their fight.
Wow, this is getting good. So we've got desperate Manjiro, Captain Davis battling his own past, and a whaleboat that's basically a symbol of freedom now. What happens next? Does Manjiro make a break for it, or is he stuck scrubbing the deck forever?
Well, the sources leave us hanging there, but they do suggest that Manjiro might find some friends among the crew. Someone who sees his side, gets his desperation, and might be willing to bend the rules a bit to help him out.
Ooh, sneaky business on the high seas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just Manjiro and Davis anymore. We've got other people involved, their own motives in the mix. It's like they're all stuck in this floating pressure cooker together, but only one of them is trying to break free.
Right. But it's more than just physically escaping, isn't it? It's about freedom on a deeper level. Manjiro's story, it makes you think about the choices we make, the things we're willing to risk for a chance at something better.
It's that age-old dilemma, right?
Mm-hmm.
The individual versus the group. How do you balance your own dreams, your needs, with what's expected of you, with responsibility to something bigger?
Exactly. And it's a question that doesn't really have a right answer, does it? It's about finding your own way, figuring out where you stand. And those sources, they don't give us a clear ending, do they? We're left wondering, did Manjiro manage to escape? Did he find those allies, those people willing to take a chance on him?
Right. It's like the story ends, but you're still there on the deck with them, feeling the tension.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the point, yeah, to get us thinking about these bigger questions, even if we don't have all the answers. So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from Manjiro's story? What's the big takeaway?
I think it's about courage. Manjiro's story, it reminds us that even when things seem impossible, even when you're up against these huge forces, it's important to fight for what you believe in, to hold on to hope, even if it's just a tiny little whaleboat in a vast ocean.
To take a chance, even when the odds are stacked against you. Because who knows? You might just find a few allies along the way, people who believe in you, who are willing to help you chart your own course. And on that note, we'll have to drop anchor on this deep dive. But the journey doesn't end here. We encourage you to keep exploring those sources, keep asking those tough questions. And hey, if you uncover any more maritime mysteries, you know where to find us. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. Until next time.